Okay, stay with me, because this is where the hidden blueprint behind the entire event begins to surface. The king didn't step onto that stage in a vague, personal capacity. He stepped up as the supreme patron of a highly private, deep-tier family organization called the Royal Education Foundation. Now, if you have never heard of this foundation before, do not worry, because that is precisely by design. It was created to operate completely underneath the radar, far away from the blinding flashbulbs of the global paparazzi and the relentless scrutiny of the British tabloids. This foundation was the absolute brainchild of the late Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. This is where the timeline of intention becomes crystal clear. Prince Philip spent his entire public life building outward-facing youth programs, most notably the famous Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme, which focused on pushing young people toward physical resilience and character development. But behind closed doors, away from the public eye, Philip built this internal family foundation for a much more intimate, critical purpose. He designed it specifically to monitor, guide, and encourage the intellectual and educational pursuits of his own grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The goal of this secret foundation was never about securing public titles, flashy media coverage, or carving out high-profile working royal statuses. It was about something far deeper. It was about implementing a strict, internal meritocracy within the House of Windsor. Prince Philip wanted to ensure that anyone born into this family possessed genuine intellectual substance and moral fortitude, regardless of whether they ever stepped out onto the balcony of Buckingham Palace to carry out official duties. By actively invoking this hidden foundation at St. Andrews, King Charles III was sending a thunderous message to the rest of the family. He was effectively telling the world that Lady Louise Windsor is the absolute textbook model of what Prince Philip's master plan was always supposed to produce. Let us look closely at how the king chose to deliver this message, because he did not keep his reasoning subtle or hidden behind vague diplomatic phrasing. He stood at that podium, looked directly at the assembly, and made it known that honoring Lady Louise was not a mere family formality. He explicitly described her as a modern beacon of unwavering academic dedication and unblemished dignity. Think about those words for a second. Unblemished dignity. In the modern landscape of the royal family, where public scandals, explosive tell-all interviews, and ugly high-profile legal battles have repeatedly dragged the family name through the mud, calling a young royal unblemished is the highest possible praise. It is a direct contrast to the chaotic, media-hungry behavior that has defined other factions of the family in recent years. Charles didn't stop there. He deliberately name-dropped the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, explicitly stating that these were the monumental standards against which Lady Louise was being measured. That is not just a proud uncle speaking from the heart. That is a reigning sovereign, setting an incredibly high, uncompromising benchmark for every single young royal in the entire family line. Now, watch how the tension builds when we look at the exact text of his opening remarks. The king looked out at the crowd and stated that the true legacy of the crown does not live in diamond-encrusted tiaras or ancient fortresses. He went on to say that it is preserved within the books you have mastered, the hours spent in quiet scholarship, and the manner in which you uphold the dignity of this family against the shifting tides of the modern world. Take a moment to really digest that statement. When a sitting monarch delivers a line like that about a young woman who has consistently chosen to keep her head down and focus on her education, the subtext is roaring. Charles was pointing directly at Louise and signaling that she is the safe keeper of the monarchy's core values. The physical location of this announcement only amplified the emotional weight of the entire scene. St. Andrews is not just any university. It is an institution deeply woven into the modern romantic legacy of the crown, famously being the exact place where Prince William and Princess Catherine first met and fell in love. By placing this massive moment of recognition here, the king was deliberately linking Louise's quiet triumph to the very foundation of the monarchy's future leadership. Hello, magazine. But for Lady Louise specifically, the connection to Scotland runs infinitely deeper than university history. Scotland was the geographic heart of her relationship with her late grandparents. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip both held a profound, deeply protective affection for Louise throughout her life. She was the grandchild who famously shared Prince Philip's beloved passion for carriage driving, inheriting his custom-built carriages and ponies, and learning the intricate, difficult sport directly under his strict, watchful guidance. She also naturally carries that same calm, understated, cool presence that the late Queen was globally renowned for. By receiving this unprecedented honor in Scotland, a land the late Queen loved above all else, Lady Louise was essentially weaving her personal academic achievement straight into the larger fabric of the family memory. It was a flawless visual and historical continuum, a tactical display of symbolic power orchestrated masterfully by King Charles. Reddit. So let us look at the actual physical tokens of honor that were presented during the ceremony, because they reveal the true depth of this historic inheritance. The presentation involved two distinct, incredibly rare artifacts. The first was the Royal Educational Heritage Medal. This piece was cast from solid gold, featuring an intricate engraving of a phoenix rising from the middle of open books on the front, the classic, timeless symbolism of wisdom, endurance, and systemic renewal. But the specific detail that actually sent whispers through the front rows was stamped on the reverse side of the medal. It featured the personal royal cipher of the late Queen Elizabeth II, engraved in remarkably high relief. This was not a modern piece of jewelry manufactured for a graduation ceremony. The gold blank used to create this medal was drawn directly from the late Queen's private, highly guarded vault. King Charles had to personally authorize its release and its specific use for Lady Louise. This means she was not just receiving a school medal, she was handed a physical piece of the late Queen's personal, private legacy, transferred directly to the most academically distinguished granddaughter of her generation. The second token was the Royal Diploma of Honor. This document was executed entirely by hand, in traditional ink on fine vellum, by the elite calligraphers of the palace. It explicitly chronicled her entire academic tenure, her personal character development, and bore the bold, unmistakable personal signature of King Charles III alongside the deep red wax seal of the foundation itself. When the heavy gold medal was finally placed against her black graduation gown, a profound, heavy silence fell over the entire hall. Every single person in attendance, from the university staff to the rows of foreign dignitaries, instantly understood they were watching something far grander than a simple academic formality. They were looking at a tangible, undeniable inheritance of royal power and validation. Lady Louise accepted the heavy medal exactly the way she has handled every single public moment of her life, with a completely flawless, deeply reverent curtsy. Her hands were trembling slightly under the immense weight of the moment, but her eyes remained completely steady, locked onto the king. She didn't rely on the simple accident of her birthright to command that stage. She used her own intellect, her own discipline, and her own merits to earn her place there. And that distinction is the entire reason Charles chose her for this monumental platform. Okay, stay with me. Because the king's address then pivoted into territory that was deeply personal, catching many off guard by bringing up a chapter of Lady Louise's early life that many casual observers have completely forgotten. He stood firmly at the podium and spoke openly about her traumatic entry into the world back in November of 2003. Louise was born prematurely under terrifying, life-threatening circumstances, requiring an emergency delivery and resulting in serious health complications from day one. Among those challenges was a severe visual condition known as congenital esotropia, an eye condition that required her to undergo multiple painful surgeries during her infancy, followed by years of exhausting, ongoing physical therapy. Charles didn't bring this up to elicit simple sympathy, or to paint her as a victim. Instead, he used the grand platform to praise what he called the iron will hidden beneath her famously gentle exterior. The king told the gathering that she faced intense physical adversity throughout her childhood with a quiet, resolute fortitude. She never complained, she never sought special dispensations, and she never used her medical condition as an excuse to falter or slow down. Instead, she took that early adversity and transformed it into what Charles described as an engine of growth, sharpening her perspective through the deep study of literature and nurturing a soul deeply attuned to the beauty of language. When a reigning monarch makes a statement like that on a public stage, he is delivering a massive message to the global public. He is telling the world that this young woman has already been thoroughly tested in the fires of personal adversity, and she came through it with her head held high, without making her struggles anyone else's problem. The Independent. Now, look at how this directly highlights her unique positioning within the current volatile royal landscape. We are living in an era where the dominant cultural currency is the relentless chase for social media validation, superficial visibility, and instant celebrity clout. Yet, throughout her 4 years at St. Andrews, Lady Louise chose a completely opposite path. She voluntarily chose to live in a standard, everyday student hall, alongside regular classmates. She walked to her lectures across the rainy Scottish campus just like everyone else, completely immersing herself in the local student community. Most importantly, she steadfastly declined to use her constitutional right to the title of princess. From the day she turned 18, she had the legal right to style herself as Her Royal Highness, Princess Louise. She looked at that glittering title, weighed the public attention that comes with it, and deliberately chose to say no. King Charles framed this specific choice not as a retreat from duty, but as a path of profound, quiet virtue. He noted that she preserved the absolute dignity of a Windsor lady while remaining perfectly relatable, grounded, and accessible to her peers. And then, the king dropped the definitive line that is guaranteed to be quoted in royal history books for generations to come. He looked directly at her and said, "My dearest niece, today you graduate not only with an outstanding academic degree from a magnificent university, but you graduate with an absolute first class in moral character, integrity, and royal dignity." Think about that phrase. An absolute first class in moral character. That is not a real university degree classification. That is the King of England inventing a completely new, unvarnished metric of personal evaluation specifically to tell the world that Louise is the gold standard for the future of the family. The immediate reaction from the front rows underscored exactly how much this moment meant to the people who have protected her from the start. Sitting side by side were her parents, Prince Edward and Sophie, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. Sophie was visibly, completely overwhelmed by the gravity of the king's words. She has been fiercely, famously protective of both of her children throughout their entire lives, constantly working to balance the brutal reality of public royal scrutiny with a fierce determination to give them a normal, well-grounded upbringing. As Charles spoke those final historic words, tears were openly glistening in Sophie's eyes, her face lit up by a radiant smile of pure, unadulterated maternal pride. It was the ultimate validation of years of quiet, careful parenting, away from the spotlight. But as the applause echoed through the ancient hall, a massive, unspoken question began to hang heavily in the air. What does this public anointing mean for the future structure of the working royal family? And how will the other, more volatile members of the house react to this sudden shift in the balance of power? New me royals. The stakes have never been higher as the inner circle of the palace prepares for the next phase of this strategic rollout. Thank you for watching this deep dive on Prime Royal Central. If you found this breakdown insightful and want to ensure you don't miss the explosive second part of this script, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel right now, and turn on all notifications so you are the very first to know when the next chapter drops. Stay tuned, because the real palace drama is only just beginning. Prince Edward maintained his usual dignified restraint, but his chest was visibly swelling with emotion. And then there was James, the Earl of Wessex, Lady Louise's younger brother, who was looking at his sister with unclouded admiration and led the applause with this youthful energy that broke through the solemnity of the hall. The Edinburgh household has increasingly become the bedrock of the modern monarchy, and this moment showed why. Their collective pride wasn't about unearned privilege. It was about a genuine, hard-fought personal victory achieved by one of their own. Adding another layer of historical continuity was Lady Sarah Cato in the audience. She's the daughter of Princess Margaret and the beloved godmother of Lady Louise. Lady Sarah has spent her life committed to artistic pursuits and quiet traditional royal elegance, and she watched the proceedings with what observers described as supreme contentment. She saw in Louise the continuation of the elegant, intellectual, poised lineage of Windsor women, who have shaped the cultural fabric of the nation without ever needing to be loud about it. But here's the modern twist that makes this whole day feel like a complete narrative. Standing at the front of the student congregation was a young man whose gaze reportedly never left Lady Louise throughout the sovereign's entire speech. He's a fellow St. Andrews student who shared the quiet library loves, the grueling exam seasons, and the ordinary joys of student life with her. After the ceremony, he stepped forward and presented her with a hand-tied bouquet of lily of the valley. And if that flower choice sounds familiar, it's because lily of the valley was famously the favorite bloom of the late Queen Elizabeth II. That's not a casual bouquet. That's someone who understands the family history Louise inhabits and respects it enough to reference it in a romantic gesture. It demonstrates a profound sensitivity to the grand matrix of her heritage, while still being a genuinely sweet modern romantic moment. Even within the rigid structures of royal destiny, genuine companionship and youthful love are still flourishing. And the fact that it's happening quietly away from headlines feels entirely consistent with who Lady Louise is. Her academic journey at St. Andrews deserves its own recognition, because it wasn't aceremonial enrollment. She chose to read English, which is a discipline requiring intense analytical thought, deep reading, and articulate expression. Throughout 4 years, she immersed herself completely in the demanding curriculum and became known among peers as exceptionally diligent, spending countless hours in university libraries under the same conditions and facing the same academic pressures as any other undergraduate. This dedication earned her genuine respect for the academic community, elevating her achievements beyond mere royal patronage. The king made it explicitly clear that her success was not a product of royal entitlement, but the fruit of her own intellectual labor. When news of the king's extraordinary endorsement radiated outward, expressions of support came from the highest levels of the family. Prince William and Princess Catherine sent a formal message from Kensington Palace that carried particular weight because they met and fell in love within those same historic university walls over 2 decades ago. Their message expressed immense pride in her academic success and impeccable conduct, saying they were absolutely thrilled to welcome another outstanding St. Andrews graduate into the immediate family. His public gesture from the future king and queen underscored the deep affection and unity between the senior lines of the monarchy and the Edinburgh household. It signaled that Louise's place within the heart and future of the British monarchy is entirely assured, anchored by the love and respect of those who will one day wear the crown. What makes all of this strategically significant is the broader generational transition currently reshaping the monarchy under King Charles III. The institution has been moving deliberately toward a streamlined, purposeful, intellectually grounded operation. In this modern vision, a royal family member's value isn't calculated by the number of ribbons cut or the volume of superficial public appearances. It's about the quality of character, the depth of education, and the authentic moral authority an individual can bring to national service. By stepping forward to personally endorse Lady Louise, Charles was presenting the blueprint of this future monarchy to the public. This strategic alignment with intellectual excellence and moral fortitude is a direct inheritance from Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, who frequently discussed the necessity of ensuring their descendants were equipped to meet the demands of an increasingly skeptical and highly educated modern society. They recognized that the traditional mystique of the crown would eventually need to be supplemented by tangible intellectual capability and unblemished personal integrity. Lady Louise, by virtue of her natural disposition and the meticulous upbringing provided by the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, has emerged as the living embodiment of this ancestral philosophy. The choice of St. Andrews as the setting was entirely deliberate. As Scotland's oldest university, it has long been associated with rigorous pursuit of truth, academic freedom, and intellectual independence. For a royal family member to not only attend but thrive within its demanding English department is a powerful statement of intent. It demonstrates that the younger generation of Windsor is willing to submit themselves to the same objective standards of evaluation as their peers. Louise didn't hide behind palace walls. She walked the cobblestone streets, engaged in robust seminars, and allowed her ideas to be challenged and refined by world-class academics and a diverse student body. This immersion in real higher education gave her a grounded perspective that cannot be replicated through private tutoring or court isolation. The king's public recognition of Louise also serves as a masterclass in internal royal diplomacy within any large hierarchical family. There's a natural risk that those standing slightly further from the immediate line of succession may feel overshadowed or lack a clear sense of purpose. By utilizing the Royal Education Foundation, a mechanism specifically designed by Prince Philip to foster excellence, Charles created a powerful incentive for all younger royals to dedicate themselves to self-improvement. The message is unmistakable. Those who work hard, maintain their dignity, and prioritize substance over fame will always find themselves valued, celebrated, and integrated into the heart of the monarchy's future plans. For years, the narrative surrounding the younger generation of the family had been dominated by debates over titles, public fallouts, and the challenges of balancing private desires with public duties. Lady Louise, through her quiet academic triumph, has single-handedly rewritten that narrative. She has shown that it's entirely possible to be a dedicated modern young woman while remaining fiercely loyal to the traditions and responsibilities of her heritage. Her success has infused the monarchy with a renewed sense of stability, proving that the ancient tree of Windsor is still capable of producing branches that are strong, resilient, and deeply rooted the virtues of the modern age. Looking at her immediate future, Lady Louise now stands at a fascinating crossroads. Her parents have meticulously shielded both her and James from the full weight of official royal expectations, allowing them the luxury of a normal childhood and uninterrupted education. But now that she's transitioned from student to highly educated graduate, speculation about her potential emergence as a central pillar of the modern monarchy has reached a fever pitch. Charles himself dropped significant hints during the discussions that followed the ceremony. He expressed immense respect for her decision to dedicate the next 12 months to a disciplined period of career reflection and personal development. Rather than rushing into public life or accepting immediate professional engagements, she's taking a deliberate year to assess her options, ensuring whatever path she chooses will be pursued with the same thoroughness that defined her time at St. Andrews. This measured approach has won her deep admiration from senior palace officials, who view her reluctance to seek immediate public adulation as proof of innate wisdom and stellar moral character. But despite this impending year of contemplation, royal insiders are confidently predicting that the public will begin to see a significant increase in her presence at major national and international events. The contemporary monarchy, having undergone substantial streamlining under Charles, finds itself in genuine need of individuals who possess the rare combination of youthful energy, profound intellectual substance, and an unblemished public reputation. Lady Louise fits this description perfectly. Her natural charm combined with the immense respect she's earned through academic achievement makes her an invaluable asset for a crown constantly seeking to maintain relevance in a rapidly changing world. The long-term vision for her is one that balances a meaningful professional career with undeniable duty to family legacy. Whether she uses her English literature degree to pursue the creative arts, academia, or international philanthropy, her future public appearances will be viewed through the lens of her status as a beacon of modern royal values. She has proven beyond any doubt that she understands the assignment of her heritage without ever needing to be told. As the echoes of that historic graduation day fade into the history of St. Andrews, the world remains captivated by the promise of her journey ahead, confident that the future of the British crown is in exceptionally capable, highly educated, and thoroughly dignified hands. And honestly, when you look at how this all unfolded, the foundation designed by Philip, the medal from the Queen's private vault, the personal appearance by the King, the deliberate choice of language about moral character being equal to academic achievement, it's clear this wasn't just a proud family moment. It was the monarchy drawing a line under what matters now and pointing to Lady Louise Windsor as the example everyone